What's up, everybody? Last week we got Season 5 reloaded of Black Ops 6 and Warzone, so as usual, with new seasons and mid-season updates, we're going to look at the meta. Today we are talking about the long-range meta, but before we do, my Twitch is linked down below if you want to come hang out while I play Warzone or Apex or brand new games or whatever. I also have all my social medias linked down below, as well as my single-player channel, my car social medias, and car YouTube channel if any of that interests you. And you want to support me anywhere else, it's definitely appreciated. And as usual, we're going to go through loadouts, and then we're going to go to true game data and just look at some stats or a TTK chart or whatever really quick. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the loadouts. All right, so starting off at number 5, we actually have kind of the return of the AMAX. It has by far the best TTK across the ranges on this list, but it is also by far the hardest to shoot. And so if you can hit all of your shots, go for the AMAX. But when you consider everyone from good players to the pros, you gotta, when we talk meta on this channel, whether it's this or Apex, we're always talking about the player base as a whole. And the less skilled players are certainly not going to hit enough shots to make the AMAX worth it. But for the AMAX, it's our typical AR build. We have the Willis 3x compensator, and then go reinforced barrel if you want the balanced approach for damage range and bullet velocity. Go long barrel if you want to push out that damage range even further. And then go gain twist barrel if you don't want to have to lead your shots as much. I prefer to go for the overall balanced approach. So I go with the reinforced barrel. Then we go with the vertical foregrip to help with the horizontal recoil. On other guns, there might be some other options, but on the AMAX with its recoil, you got to go vertical foregrip. Otherwise, you're just going to get beat out by other things on this list. Then we go extended mag 2. It's got 60 rounds. If you're playing solos or duos, go with the extended mag 1 so you don't have any real negatives other than reload quickness. And maybe trios, you get away with it with 45. But trios and quads, I'd really recommend the extended mag 2. Then commando grip. Once again, this is like a balanced approach thing to help the aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. If you're going to be really aggressive, which you don't need it for an AR, but if you want sprint to fire speed, go with the assault grip. And if you want aim down sight speed, go with the quick draw grip. But we're looking at these 3 grips here. The other ones aren't as useful. Then we go light stock. This is the equivalent of light stock or no stock. There's nothing in the stocks that helps with recoil or any kind of gun control or anything. There's some flinch resistance, but flinch is not too bad on AR. So we go with the light stock to help hip fire speed, movement speed. And then recoil springs because this does have recoil on it. Now, if you can control the recoil, you can go compensator and go monolithic instead and keep the recoil springs. Or if you can hit your shots, you could get rid of recoil springs and go with overpressured. But if you don't hit your shots compared to other guns on this list, you're going to lose. So I go with the recoil springs there. Then moving on to number 4, we have the aims. The aims kind of just seems to hang around on this list because it's so easy to shoot, and it has a good enough TTK to be on this list. It's certainly not the best TTK, but it was enough that it kept the Cypher off of this list. I was going between this and the Cypher number 4, and the TTK was good enough to keep the Cypher off. And it's the same build I just showed. If you want to go absolutely new recoil, you can go with the recoil springs. If the recoil is not too bad, which it really isn't, you can go over pressured on here. Also, if you want to be a little more aggressive and you think the recoil is easy, you can go with the Ranger foregrip to get some sprint move speed if you're going to be aggressive with it. But I'd go with the vertical foregrip. And then also you could go recoil springs and go monolithic suppressor instead of compensator. Or you could go compensator and go over pressured. I wouldn't recommend both because then you start to introduce recoil, and part of the reason for this gun is it's so easy to shoot. But other than that, it's just the normal loadout that we just talked about. Moving on to number 3, we still have the ABR on this list because in the close and mid-range, the ABR got really nerfed, but in the long range, it's got a really good TTK still, and it's easy to hit shots with this gun. Especially in this build where once again you have the compensator and the recoil springs. The light pad here is the equivalent to the light stock or the no stock. And it's the exact same build. If you're finding, once again, easy to hit your shots, you can go up to the monolithic suppressor. I would leave the recoil springs. Or you can go over pressured, and I would leave compensator. And this gun is pretty easy to shoot, so if you're a high skill player, maybe go monolithic suppressor and over pressured. And obviously, if you can control the burst recoil, it'll be super easy to shoot. But other than that, it's just our normal loadout with the normal possible changes. And the comb, once again, is the grip. You could go combat riser or quick draw riser instead of commando riser, but this just takes place of our rear grip. At number 2, we have the XM4. Now, the XM4 falls off like crazy, but in the close and mid-range, it's got a great TTK. And with the buffer weight stock, which is still really good, it's incredibly easy to shoot. Virtually no recoil. If you really want to go no recoil, just go monolithic, go compensator, or instead of overpressured, go recoil springs. And if you do both, then the gun like actually just doesn't move at all with the buffer weight stock. So those are the changes that you can make there. But I would say that monolithic suppressor and overpressure are good. Vertical foregrip should do enough that you can hit your shots. But once again, if you want to go absolutely no recoil, go compensator and recoil springs, and then it just doesn't move at all. And that's why it's at number 2, because it's so easy to make not move. But at number 1, we have the return of the Kilo. Same build, compensator. I put overpressured on here. You can do recoil springs if you want to go monolithic and help the damage range and bullet velocity. And of course you can go recoil springs, and the Kilo also pretty much doesn't move at all and has the most usable TTK on this whole list. And it's the same build we were just talking about with the changes you can make. Of course, it's a no stock instead of a light stock here, but it's the exact same build that we just talked through with all the guns. And then these are the changes I would make if you want to go 5 attachments. You drop firing mods, although I'd argue with the Apex you leave firing mods and leave the recoil spring, but you drop fire mods, stock, and rear grip, and you would just leave the first 5 attachments. And that's how I would take it down to 5 attachments if you're not somebody who runs 8 attachments on everything like I try to do. So that are the loadouts. That's how I would rank the top 5 long range. If you just wanted loadouts and my long range ranking, thank you so much for watching. For the rest of us, we're going to go over to True Game Data. All right, so we're over on True Game Data, and you can see I have them loaded in. With the same builds that I was just showing, all the same attachments here. So we go down to the TTK chart. I have it set to combination, where these are the default values for percentages of where you'd be hitting your shots that True Game Data has. We just left that because it's just their default through their testing. They collected a bunch of data a while ago. Anyways, you can see that the aims falls off pretty hard. Nothing falls off like the XM4. But if you look at, so if you take out the aims and the XM4, you're left with the Kilo here, which actually the aims does have a better long range TTK. But if you look in this mid range where the fights mostly happen between 40, where they're the same up to like 43, and then here at 74, when really fights are between 40 and 60, the Kilo's demolishing, and the TTK difference isn't that large there. And the aims does have a little more recoil than the Kilo. So we're looking at the ABR and the AMAX. You can see the ABR competes in the long range with TTK for the AMAX, and it's much easier to shoot, which is why it's higher on this list. And when you compare the ABR and the aims doesn't have much worse of a TTK at range, but the ABR I think is probably a little bit easier to shoot for most people. You could switch the ABR and the aims if you wanted. But these are overall what the TTK chart looks like. The XM4, like I said, the XM4 is deadly up to 60 meters, which is why it's as high as this list as it is. But it's probably better for Resurgence overall. I still think it deserves the number 2 spot. Probably better for Resurgence overall because of this hard drop off, and you will get into fights over 80 meters. But up to 80 meters, nothing really beats it in this configuration except for the AMAX a little bit. But then in that long, once you get past 79 meters, it's getting destroyed by everything. So I'd recommend the AMAX or the Kilo personally the most, despite the fact that they fall off the way they do. They're just the easiest 2 to shoot on this list. They're the 2 best between 43 and 55. And even then, the Kilo is still tied for 3rd at 59.6 meters. So it's really up to you. If you play Resurgence, absolutely go with the XM4. I don't think there's a question that you go with anything other than that on Resurgence. If you play BR, I would really choose between the Kilo and the XM4. The ABR is just not good enough until the really long ranges. And the Kilo and the XM4 are the easiest to shoot on this list. So that's the way I would look at it. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you like this type of content, Apex content, or game reviews, and you want to see those first. Like I said, comment down below your thoughts on my ranking, my loadouts, anything related to this down below. And like I said, check out my links for my Twitch, social media, and other YouTube channels down below in the description. And I'll also link True Game Data if you want to go do some comparisons for yourself. But once again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you on Verdansk. Get frying. Have a good day. Bye.